questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. So, this idea of discovery, how does it translate into your daily life, and what kind of like habits and rituals do you implement so that when you sit down at your desk or however you practice writing, the discovery kind of comes natural to you?
Yeah, meditation is probably one of the biggest rituals I have because it reminds me to tear down the wall within myself. It reminds me that there are boundaries and barriers that I have I'm infested with boundaries and barriers. I really am, and in everything, in every aspect, whether it's teaching, whether it's writing, creative pursuits, whether it's fathering, you start to discover, and I think for me, the more I meditate, the more I'm aware of these things as they're happening. I go, oh, crap, I didn't know that I was putting up this wall to myself or to my way of thinking. And so for me, that's one of them. But the other one too is, well, I guess this is all tied in. It's all interconnected. This is all tied into meditation. But it's also just the way of, I've heard, maybe it was Juan Felipe Herrera also who said that to write the poem, you have to also live the non-poem. This idea of walking around with that sort of third eye or that radar of how we perceive information in the world, and that we're open to the possibilities of what's happening, right? Because it's so easy for us to be led by up here and guided around every day with all of our stresses and worries and concerns, and it's so easy then to forget and push away all of what's really happening to us, the phenomena of what's really going on. So I always try to keep that attuned. Yes, sir.
So about like the Caracol structure that you're talking about, I find this idea very curious. Because I don't know if you're aware of this, but like Zapatistas organizations, whenever they put like an institution or something, because they don't believe in hierarchical structures, they don't call it a center or an institute. They call them caracoles. So that's where that will be like a place. So I don't know, because I know that you're kind of like into like mysticism and you talked about meditation and whatnot. Have you ever like looked into like the relationship that caracoles have in like Mesoamerican culture?
I have. In fact, this is totally a subliminal thing for you all. It's zapping you all. You don't even realize it. But when I first started doing the research of the plane crash, it's the first time I became aware of that. This Mesoamerican, even indigenous, practice sort of concept and idea of the caracol. Because it was a friend of mine who is steeped in that, and she was in Mexico City, but she was in the Bay Area at the time, and I had just begun the research. And she started to talk to me about this idea of me being so closed off to everything, and she referred to it as the circle. And then she referred to the caracol for the first time, and she tried to explain some of that to me. And I love the idea because something that she said to me that stuck with me was that it's still protecting you. The caracol is still protective, because it shields, but at the same time it doesn't close, right? It remains open still. And so every time I find myself needing to explain something, and it wasn't conscious at first, it was just like something that she put, like a seed she planted, and then I would go on, and now, mind you, I've been doing the research on this book since 2010, so for 9 years now, okay? So every few years I would find myself kind of trying to explain something, or this would continue to come back and reemerge in conversations like this. And so very deliberately, the caracol is here for that reason. But yeah, I'd like to actually learn more about that, pretty limited as to what I know. Yes, sir.
Do you have a paper? That's what he's going to ask.
No, he's going to ask me about my Do I have a newspaper? Ahmed, you've gotten your nose out of the newspaper.
I'll wait for that later. What is your rash? I mean, how did you come up with using that instrument to?
The Shruti.
Yeah.
The Shruti. Well, the Shruti is basically it's a drone instrument used in classical Indian music. But the Shruti, at least in the sort of most simplistic, I think, translation means what is heard. And that's the translation for the word Shruti, what is heard in Sanskrit. I actually, that's as far as I know about it. But I was exposed to it more than 15 years ago, maybe, for the first time. And I loved that it had this idea, I love that this drone, this sort of constant ohm that it had, when it stops, forces you to listen. And it makes sense then why it's called a Shruti, which is, to be heard. Because then after that, you can hear a pin drop. And then that's its purpose, is to guide us to listening, to pay attention. So I like that, and I've just used it for reading poetry.
Well, the instrument that typically goes with Indian classical music is called a harmonium. I think that's a computer.
More advanced string. It's with the keys, right?
Yeah.
That's wonderful, yeah, like the harmonium, you can really. As an undergraduate, I had a teacher who played the harmonium.
Oh, yeah?
He would play that for us in class often, yeah. It's pretty interesting. Yes?
I have a question with the, you said your uncle that passed away, he was more like your big brother. How many, I had, a similar experience where my uncles were not, maybe, you know how it goes with Hispanic families sometimes, and sometimes the uncles are not much older than
Yeah.
mine were like 2 years older than myself. So how much older was your uncle than you, if you don't mind me asking?
My uncle died when he was 38 and I was 21. I was 20. So 18, about 18 years older. Yeah. And I remember when I reached 38, I was thinking, God, this is how old, like he was still a kid. And now that I'm much older, I think, man, he was really a kid. But yeah, he was 18 years older than me. Yes?
I actually have a two-part question, but I'm not sure if it's relevant. But,
It's all relevant. It's all interconnected, man. I told you.
The first one being, does writing come to you naturally? And also, because I know you identify as an activist, a writer, and a professor.
You know that? That's really cool.
From your session. But what would you say is like the thing that you would say is the most you know, because you're all of these things and you're many more, but what would you say is the main thing?
No, writing doesn't come. I mean, writing, yeah. Here's the thing: is that for me, honestly, I'm focusing it on the writing here. But for me, everything goes. I'm gathering all the tools in the toolbox, right? Painting, performance, music, everything that I can gather, everything that I need to tell the story, to gather the story I use. Nothing is off limits. Nothing. But writing seems to be the one that I've had most people pay attention to, I think, and that's probably why it feels right. But also, I like that writing becomes a sort of a document that lasts forever. I like that. But I also do sometimes like the sort of spontaneity of something in the moment, and that's it. There's something liberating about that too. Both of those, I think, go hand in hand. Yeah. But yeah, writing, I think, comes to me as probably as natural as anything else. Language.